I arrived at the restaurant for dinner with my fiancé's family, but something felt off. No one was there. Just as I started to wonder what was going on, my phone rang. It was her, and what she said next stopped me cold. I've faced explosions, jumped from skyscrapers, and walked away from car crashes that should have killed me. Nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the quiet devastation of finding myself alone at a restaurant, holding a check for $100,000, and realizing the woman I was supposed to marry had just erased me from her life. The soft hum of hushed conversations and the clinking of silverware usually soothed me, but tonight, under the restaurant's warm, expensive glow, every sound seemed to amplify the growing chill in my gut. My reservation was for 8, my heart set on a future I believed we were building, and the air was thick with a premonition I desperately tried to ignore. I arrived 20 minutes early, dressed better than I usually bothered, feeling a familiar tension in my shoulders. It was the same way I held myself before a dangerous stunt, loose, ready, controlled. The irony wasn't lost on me. I knew exactly how to prepare for a car rollover, a stair fall, a wire yank, a fire gag. But I had no idea how to prepare for humiliation delivered in a soft, casual voice by the woman I was supposed to marry. My name is Lucas. I'm a stuntman. I make a living taking hits, crashing through glass, getting thrown off balconies, and, if the day goes well, walking away. People think men like me are reckless, fearless, built from something harder than everyone else. They're wrong. The men who survive in my profession are the ones who respect pain. We study it. We predict it. We learn exactly how much force the body can absorb before something breaks. For real, that night, standing under the warm glow of expensive restaurant lighting, with an envelope in my inside pocket, I learned that emotional pain is the only kind you can't rehearse for. The hostess gave me a polite smile when I said the reservation name. Then she frowned at her screen. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see it." I smiled back, because that's what I do when things start slipping out of place. "Could it be under Sophia?" I asked. She checked again. "No, sir." That was the first moment I felt it, something small and cold moving under my ribs. I stepped aside, pulling out my phone. Sophia answered quickly, almost too quickly. "Hey," I said, "I'm here, but they can't find the reservation." Silence. A long, chilling silence. Then she spoke, in the same tone someone might use to mention milk on a grocery list. "Oh, we moved the dinner to last night. I thought you knew." I didn't say anything. The restaurant around me seemed to dim and sharpen at the same time. A waiter carrying wine, a couple leaning close over candlelight, somebody laughing near the bar. Every sound suddenly too clear, too loud. "You moved it," I said finally, my voice flat. "To last night." "Yeah, my mother wanted to do it sooner, and my sister Nicole had something with the kids tonight." "I thought Chloe texted you." She hadn't. Another pause, then a sigh, laced with an irritation that cut deeper than any physical blow. "Lucas, please don't make this into a whole issue." That sentence hit harder than I expected. My voice dropped, becoming dangerously quiet. "I'm standing alone in the restaurant where your family invited me, and you're telling me not to make it into an issue?" In the background, I heard a woman's voice, probably Nicole's. "Is he seriously upset?" Sophia covered the phone for a moment, then came back colder. "It was just family dinner," she said. "It wasn't about you. There are moments when something inside you stops bleeding and turns to ice instead. That was one of them. It wasn't about you." I looked down at the envelope in my hand, a certified check for $100,000. I had arranged it in secret. It was for Chloe's college fund. I hadn't told anyone because I wanted to make it special. I wanted to hand it to her at dessert, maybe after a toast, maybe after her mother got teary-eyed talking about how proud she was. I wanted one pure moment of generosity, something that would say, "I am here. I am serious. I am building a future with you people." Instead, I was standing alone in a restaurant while they ate without me the night before. "Okay," I said. "Okay," she repeated. "Yeah," I said. "Okay." I ended the call. For a few seconds, I just stood there, holding the envelope, feeling stupid in a way I hadn't felt since I was young and broke and desperate to be taken seriously by people with more polish than me. Then I took the check out, folded it once, and tore it in half. My hands didn't shake. That was the frightening part. I tore it again and again, small pieces, white scraps falling into my palm like dead skin. I took them to the restroom and dropped them into the trash. As I washed my hands, I stared at my reflection. Broad shoulders, a broken nose that had healed a little crooked, a scar near my hairline, another at the chin. The face of a man who had walked away from explosions, bar fights on camera, and one motorcycle slide that should have killed him. And yet, I had still somehow believed I could buy my way into a family that had never really wanted me there. I drove home in silence. No music, no calls, no yelling, just silence and the bitter taste of humiliation in the back of my throat. Sophia and I had been together a little over 2 years. We met on a streaming series. I was doubling the lead actor for fight scenes and a rooftop jump. She was there consulting on production design for a few episodes because the original designer had walked off after a blowout with the producers. She was elegant in that way some women are, even when they're angry. Clean lines, controlled expression, expensive taste that never looked flashy. She was divorced, had one daughter, Chloe, and carried herself like someone who was always 3 seconds away from handling a crisis. I admired that. At first, she admired me, too. She said she liked that I was steady, that I didn't flinch under pressure, that I knew how to stay calm while everyone else panicked. It made me feel seen in a way I hadn't expected. Most people hear stuntman and think one of two things. Either they imagine a reckless idiot who never grew up, or they treat you like a disposable part from someone else's movie, a body thrown into danger, so the real star can stay pretty. Sophia made me feel like more than that, at least in the beginning. Then I met her family. Her mother, Martha, was elegant and poisonous, the kind of woman who could insult you in a silk blouse and pearls, then look surprised if you noticed. Her father, George, was loud and dismissive, the sort of man who believed speaking confidently was the same as being right. Her sister, Nicole, smiled when she was cruel, which somehow made it uglier. Chloe, her daughter, was harder to read. 19, bright, talented, a little spoiled in subtle ways. She wanted to study costume design and genuinely had the skill for it. I'd seen her sketches. She had an eye. I tried with all of them. I showed up to birthdays, dinners, graduation events, holiday lunches, random backyard gatherings. I smiled through jokes about Hollywood people. I ignored comments about my work not being stable. I let Martha ask whether I planned to keep falling down staircases for money when I was 50. I listened to George explain practical adulthood, as if I hadn't been paying my own bills since I was 19. Every time I reacted, even mildly, Sophia would do the same thing later. They didn't mean it that way. You know how my family is. Why do you always focus on one comment? Can't you just let things go for me? That last part mattered. For me, always for her, for peace, for appearances, for keeping the machine running. And then there was money. Sophia never asked directly in the beginning. She invited rescue. There was always some problem already in motion when she mentioned it. Chloe's tuition gap, a legal expense from the divorce, her mother's dental work, a home repair, a deposit she couldn't lose, a short-term cash issue that became another short-term issue a month later. Every time I stepped in, she looked at me with tired gratitude and said, "I don't know what we'd do without you." That sentence can trap a man if it arrives wrapped in love. I told myself I was helping because I cared, because I could, because being part of a family meant carrying weight together. But if I'm honest, I was also trying to earn something no one should have to earn that way: belonging. A few months before the restaurant, Chloe and I sat on my patio one afternoon while Sophia took a call inside. Chloe had her sketchbook with her, hair twisted up badly, like she'd done it while thinking about something else. "I got in," she said quietly. "I know. I'm proud of you." She smiled, then sighed. "Mom's freaking out about how we're going to pay for it." I looked at her. How bad is it? Bad enough that every conversation at home sounds like someone trying not to scream. That stayed with me. Later that night, Sophia cried in my kitchen. She said she felt like she was failing as a mother, said her ex had left financial messes behind, said Chloe was being punished for adult problems she didn't create. I held her and said, "We'll figure it out." That word cost me more than I understood at the time. The next week, I met with my financial advisor and moved money around. The certified check came 3 days before the dinner. 3 days before I found out I wasn't important enough to notify. The morning after the restaurant, Sophia came to my house without calling. She still had a key then. I heard the lock turn while I was making coffee. She walked into the kitchen, looking offended already. "You ignored my calls." "I saw them." "That's childish." I poured coffee into a mug and didn't answer. She stood there in a cream blouse and fitted trousers, hair perfect, face controlled. She looked like someone coming to negotiate a problem, not apologize for causing one. "Chloe heard from Nicole that you caused some kind of scene last night." "I didn't cause a scene." "She said you tore something up in the lobby." "I did." "What?" "A check." She frowned. "What check?" I looked at her over the rim of my mug. "A certified check for $100,000 for Chloe's college fund." The silence that followed was the first honest thing between us in a long time. She went pale. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Oh my God." I waited. Then she said exactly what I should have expected, though part of me still hoped for better. "Why would you do that?" "Not. You were going to do that for her." "Not. I'm sorry. Not. What have I done?" "Just. Why would you tear it up?" I set the mug down. "I was going to give it to her at dinner," I said. "The dinner your family moved without telling me." Her hand went to her forehead. "Lucas, this is insane." "No," I said. "This is clear. You destroyed a $100,000 gift because you were upset." "Upset," I repeated. "Yes, upset. Hurt feelings, a misunderstanding." I laughed once. "It wasn't pleasant. You left me standing in a restaurant alone like an idiot. It was a scheduling issue." "It was exclusion." Her jaw tightened. "You always make everything so dramatic, and you always rename disrespect into something easier to tolerate." She started pacing. "My mother, Martha, wanted to move the dinner. Nicole had an issue with the kids. Chloe thought I told you. I thought she told you. These things happen." "No," I said. "What happens after a mistake is an apology." What I got was, "It wasn't about you." Her eyes flashed. "Because it wasn't. It was about Chloe. And yet, I was expected to finance it." That landed. She folded her arms. "That's unfair." "Is it?" "Yes." "You offered to help. I also offered to marry you." Both offers depended on mutual respect. She stared at me for a moment, then lowered her voice, trying for softness. "Lucas, we're engaged. Families are messy. You know mine can be difficult. But this can be fixed. Call the bank, reissue the check. We'll sit down together and talk this out." I looked at her face and saw the truth at last. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing what I represented. Stability, resources, solutions. I took off my engagement ring and placed it on the counter. She froze. "What are you doing?" "Ending this." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Then, "You cannot be serious." "I am." "Over one dinner?" "No," I said. "Over finally understanding my place in your life." Her eyes filled with tears, but even then I no longer trusted them. "You're punishing Chloe for something she didn't do." "No," I said calmly. "I'm refusing to keep paying for the privilege of being sidelined." "That's disgusting." "No." "What's disgusting is leaving your fiancé out of a family celebration and expecting his money to show up anyway." She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. "What am I supposed to tell Chloe?" "The truth," I said. "Try it for once." That made her angry in a way the breakup hadn't. Her whole face changed. "You always act like you're better than everyone else." I didn't answer. "My parents were right about you," she snapped. "You don't know how to be part of a real family." That should have hurt. Instead, it brought relief. Finally, it was plain. Finally, no one was pretending. "Take your key off your ring before you leave." Her hand shook as she pulled it free. She threw it on the counter, so hard it bounced once. You're going to regret this. No, I said. I'm not. She grabbed the engagement ring and left. I stood alone in my kitchen afterward, and the first thing I felt was not heartbreak. It was relief so deep it frightened me. The fallout came fast. Chloe texted first. Mom says you ended things over a misunderstanding. I stared at the message, then wrote back. No, I ended things because I finally understood I wasn't family. I was useful. She replied, almost at once. Were you really bringing me a check? I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny. Because, of course, that was the first question. Yes, I wrote. A minute later. Why would you tear it up? I put my phone down and walked away from it. By afternoon, Martha called. I hope you're pleased with yourself, she said before I even spoke. Hello to you too. How dare you manipulate Chloe this way? Manipulate? Yes. Offering something like that, and then destroying it because you felt slighted. I leaned against the counter. Your daughter excluded me from dinner. Oh, don't be absurd. Plans changed. And no one told me. You're a grown man. Must everything become a wound? An interesting question, coming from a woman who treated basic accountability like a personal attack. If you intended to help Chloe, she said icily, you should have done it regardless. That's not generosity, I said. That's entitlement. She inhaled sharply. You were never quite the right fit for this family. There it was, elegant poison. Finally undiluted. Thank you, I said. For what? For saying it clearly. I hung up. Nicole texted next. Destroying a girl's future because your ego got bruised is low. Even for you. I answered with one sentence. You people confused access with ownership. She didn't reply. 2 days later, George called from an unknown number. You made commitments, he said. I corrected a mistake. Chloe is innocent. Then her actual family should take care of her. He got louder after that. Accused me of cruelty, of immaturity, of abandoning people who trusted me. I listened until he ran out of steam, then said, the fact that all of you are more upset about money than about what was done to me tells me I made the right decision. Then I hung up. After that, the silence came. Not total silence. There were more texts, a few blocked numbers, one long email from Sophia I deleted after the first paragraph because it began with, I know you're hurting, but so are we. And I was finished being turned into a committee issue. I changed the locks, packed her things, canceled deposits, bookings, insurance riders, and every lingering piece of the wedding. Then I did something I should have done much earlier. I asked my accountant for a full breakdown of what I had spent over the course of our relationship. The numbers came in a spreadsheet the next afternoon. I opened it with a beer in my hand and had to set the beer down halfway through because I suddenly felt sick. Tuition support, emergency transfers, legal assistance, travel deposits, rent shortfalls, medical bills, software for Chloe, design supplies, furniture help, house repairs, a family vacation contribution I had somehow justified as generosity. It added up to a number that made me go cold. Not because it would ruin me, because I had allowed it while convincing myself I was building love. You can survive fire and still be ashamed of your own blindness. Work saved me after that. Not emotionally in a dramatic way, just practically. A set is honest. Yes, dangerous, full of egos, weather delays, money problems, and actors who think they can do their own stunts until they see what that actually means. But the danger itself is honest. Gravity doesn't manipulate. Fire doesn't reframe itself. A body either lands where it's meant to, or it doesn't. About a month after the breakup, I was on a shoot outside Atlanta coordinating a second-story drop and a stairwell fight for a limited series. Long days, good crew, less time to think. One of the understunt performers, Leo, saw me stretching my shoulder between setups. Old injury? He asked. Collection of bad decisions, I said. He laughed. You ever think about quitting? Every time I hit the ground. Then why don't you? I looked across the empty set at the marked pads, the rigging lines, the lighting crew moving like ghosts behind the flats. Because I know the difference, I said, between danger that comes with purpose and pain that doesn't. He probably thought I meant the job. I did. But not only the job. By the time that production wrapped, I had gone several days without checking my phone for messages I didn't want, without replaying the restaurant call in my head, without imagining alternate outcomes where Sophia suddenly became honest, her family became ashamed, and everything softened into something reparable. That was how healing began. Not with a grand revelation, but with fewer returns to the wound. When I got home, the house felt different. Not empty. Mine. I repainted the bedroom. Got rid of decorative things I had never liked but had tolerated because compromise was supposed to be virtuous. Bought a better coffee machine. Reorganized the garage. Called an old friend I'd neglected during the relationship and spent a Saturday riding motorcycles on back roads until dark. One afternoon, I found an old note in my office drawer. A page torn from a pad, written in my own hand. Asterisk, wedding budget. Support Chloe through school. Bigger house eventually. Create stability. Asterisk. I stared at it for a long time, then I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. Not angrily, almost tenderly. Because that version of me had meant well. He had just mistaken self-erasure for devotion. About 3 months later, Nicole called. Not texted, called. That alone told me something was wrong. What? I said when I answered. She seemed offended by the lack of greeting. Good. I thought you should know Sophia is having a hard time. I leaned back in my chair. And you felt I needed this information because? Chloe deferred admission. That surprised me. Money is tighter than expected, she added after a pause. There it was. I laughed quietly. You called to ask me for money? No, she snapped. I called because I thought maybe despite everything you still cared. Nicole, you watched me get excluded, then helped paint me as unstable for noticing. Whatever caring I had left, your family spent it. She made mistakes. So did I. Mine were expensive. Her voice sharpened. You're colder than I realized. No, I said. I'm finally proportionate. I hung up before she could say anything else. That night I sat on my porch with a glass of bourbon and realized I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy exactly. Free. No more trying to win approval from people whose respect depended on what I provided. No more translating insults into family dynamics. No more pretending that being tolerated was the same as being loved. I had spent too much of my life surviving impact. I was done volunteering for it at home. 6 months after the breakup, I got an email from Chloe. The subject line was simple. Thank you. I almost deleted it. Instead, I opened it. She wrote that she was in community college for now and working part-time in the costume department of a local theater. She wrote that she had been angry at me for a long time, that she thought I had taken something from her. Then came the line that mattered. I think now you just stopped giving what was never owed. I read that twice. Then she said she was beginning to understand how much entitlement had been normalized around her, that she had learned it at home, that she was trying to unlearn it. She said she didn't expect a reply. She just wanted to thank me for having cared about her future even if everything ended badly. I sat there with the email open for a long time. In the end, I wrote back only one sentence. Build a life that doesn't depend on anyone lying to keep it standing. She never responded. She didn't need to. I think people imagine the satisfying ending to a story like mine is revenge. That Sophia begged. That her parents apologized. That Nicole got publicly exposed. That everyone finally admitted I had been right. Life is rarely that neat. The real ending was quieter. I worked more but smarter. Took fewer body-heavy jobs and more coordination work. Better money, less damage. I bought a small place outside the city with enough land behind it that I could sit outside at night and hear insects instead of neighbors. I started sleeping deeply again. The constant tension I had carried for 2 years disappeared so gradually I almost missed it. That's what toxic love does. It trains your body to live in low-level alarm, then calls it commitment. It tells you anxiety is intimacy. It tells you sacrifice without reciprocity is maturity. It tells you being useful is the same as being valued. It isn't. Love that requires silence, money, and self-betrayal is not love. It's maintenance. And the check? That's the part people always come back to when they hear the story. The $100,000. The paper in my hands. The tearing. The trash can in the restaurant restroom. Do I regret it?
No.
Not because the money was nothing. Because the act meant everything. It was the first time in that relationship I responded to reality instead of potential. The first time I stopped paying for a future I had to beg to be included in. That torn check was expensive. But marrying into that family would have cost me more.
So no.
I wasn't at that family dinner. I was never really meant to be. And thank God, I found that out before I signed my life away trying to prove I belonged. What would you have done in my shoes? Was tearing up that check an act of justified anger or too extreme? Let me know in the comments below.